this year is kind of an enigma. Like, I don't feel like there's one dominant position. Like, quarterback doesn't seem to be getting the headlines. There's not a ton of receivers getting the headlines. At first, you thought with the kid from Michigan and Hutchinson, both, David Ajobo, you thought, okay, maybe that's going to be the way, but then he gets hurt. What do you make of this where there's not a clear-cut top 10 where everybody kind of really knows where guys are going to be?
Well, that seems to be the case for this year's class, just because over the past 3 years, we knew who the number one pick was eventually going to be, and they were quarterbacks. Whether it was Kyler in 2019, Joe Burrow in 2020, and then last year with Trevor, quarterbacks always drive the interest in the NFL draft. And this year, we just don't really have those quarterbacks at the top this year. And I think that's what is going to make my job really interesting and fun this year, just because of the mystery of this year's draft. And I've always compared the NFL draft to Christmas. There's a new sense of hope for every fan base around the country. And with this draft, nobody knows what's going to happen. It's not just a media perspective, it's also on our end, too, as far as within the league and people of that nature talking to scouting buddies. They don't even know what's going to happen. They don't even know some of the ideas that their general manager could have going into tomorrow. So the mystery really surrounding this draft has really created a lot of intrigue as far as what could happen tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's kind of dual purpose for me on this question. You look at the Vikings, and I cover the Vikings, but also cover the Gophers. The Vikings are looking for a possible edge rusher. I saw you put the kid out of Kentucky in your mock draft, Josh. And, I mean, I watched some of the highlights and some of the clips and some of the play. I mean, this kid is a freak. He's a freak of nature. But then there's also Boye Mafe out of Minnesota. He just have to drive right up the road down to Egan for training camp. So, but now, some people have him ranked in like the top 30. I don't know if he goes that high, but could you see him being a fit or an opportunity to be with the Vikings?
Yeah, I think so. Just from a style standpoint, and then what he brings to the table as far as a defensive end, I think he's exactly what they're looking for. Now, there are some things as far as some attributes and some characteristics that it would go against a little bit of what Kwesi has been accustomed to, as far
Mhm.
as some of the values and then some of the philosophies he has been brought up under. So he's a disciple of Andrew Berry. So something that is very prevalent in the Andrew Berry philosophy is age. So whenever you're talking about some younger prospects, I think that's what Kwesi is going to target with Boy Mafe probably being a 24-year-old rookie that will go against a little bit of what Kwesi was brought up in. So whenever I'm targeting some guys for the Vikings, look for some guys that are in that 20 to 21-year-old range, just because that's just what Kwesi was brought under. The Cleveland Browns have never drafted anybody that was 23 years old or older on
Oh, wow.
draft day. So I think that's something that he could bring over. And the biggest reason for that is just from a financial standpoint, and I'll use Justin Jefferson and Danielle Hunter for an example. Both of those guys were 20 years old when they were drafted. They're going to sign their next big contract at 24 years old, which Danielle already did. Danielle's going to get another lucrative deal probably when he turns or close to being 30 years old. So as opposed to a rookie like Boye Mafe, let's say he does get the 5th-year option extended. Now you're talking about him signing his second contract at 30 years old. So just from a financial standpoint, that's why I think Kwesi is going to bring over some of those age, what they're called are guardrails, or some of the things that he brought over philosophical from Andrew Berry. Excuse me. I think that's something that I expect Kwesi to do when you're targeting some of these younger draft prospects.
And what did you like about Josh Paschal? I think is how you say his name, out of Kentucky.
Paschal.
Paschal. That's what I
Yeah.
thought. Okay. What did you
Yeah.
like about him?
So just the versatility. I mean, sometimes you'll see him playing one technique. The next play he'll be a three, and then the next play he'll be head up in a 4-eye or a four technique. So just the versatility. I think that's what is going to be what we see accustomed to in Ed Donatel's defense, as
Mhm.
far as just moving these guys all over the place. And I think he's going to move Dalvin Tomlinson, Harrison Phillips, and we know he's going to move around Za'Darius and Daniel Hunter all over the place. I think with Josh Paschal, there's so many different positions that he can play. The character is off of the charts, and then he's so disruptive. He has very strong hands. He's very reliable as a run defender. I mean, he can stand firm at the point of attack, but he also can penetrate as a pass rusher too. So as you go down the list, he's just checking box after box after box. And I just think it would be a really good fit in this new 3-4 defense that they want to install.
And when you look at Kevin O'Connell in the Rams, a lot of people are saying receiver. But I don't know if I would personally. I don't know if I would go at 12 as a receiver. If you drop back to 20, you gain another pick somewhere. Maybe that's viable if you can trade with the Steelers. But when you think about receiver, I like Christian Watson out of NDSU, and the reason is because one, he's 6'4", he ran a fast 40. He's a kid. I think that they don't have that style of a guy at 6'4". You got Justin Jefferson and Thielen, who are, they do different unique things, but this kid can take the top off, but he's also a true tall, long body receiver that can go deep. But what receiver could you see Kevin O'Connell going after?
So the one that I have earmarked, and I'll just go over the situation. And with the Vikings, I think it's going to be an edge rusher or a cornerback at 12. But if we're talking about worst case scenario, Sauce is off the board, Stingley's off the board, and then some of these edge rushers are gone, including Jermaine Johnson II. So let's
Mhm.
say that one player that I do like a lot at 12, if they want to take a wide receiver, is Jameson Williams from Alabama. I think he just brings a different element to the game. And you talk about the big body receiver, but outside of Justin Jefferson, the Vikings don't have that three-level threat that
True.
can just bring that explosive play to the table, like where you have a one or two play drive and you're off of the field. And the Vikings offense was plenty explosive last year, but I think they need to alleviate some of that pressure off of Justin Jefferson. Luckily, KJ Osborne was able to unlock the next stage of his development, but I think he's more so a number 3 or number 4 wide receiver. But when you're talking about a potential succession plan to Adam Thielen, who is getting up there in age, and I know they restructured the contract, he's probably going to be on the team for 2 more years. But you don't have to rush Jameson Williams back from the ACL. You can get Thielen back into the swing of things from his injury. You can keep using Osborne. You have Amir Smith Marset. BC Johnson will be back too. So there's a situation of where if you want to redshirt Jameson Williams, you can. If you want to bring him back midseason, you can. But I just think he unlocks a different type of element to the passing game, and then also different portions of the field that the Vikings don't have. And then also, Kevin O'Connell loves to stay in 11 personnel, those 3 wide receivers on the field. So I think when you're having the guard or you're having the game plan for Jameson Williams, Justin Jefferson, and Adam Thielen, along with Irv Smith, who will be back, that's going to cause a lot of people a lot of headaches.
And when you look at these quarterbacks, so the Vikings tried Kellen Mond. Um, Not sure that's going to be the answer ever, but I don't know. I'm not a quarterback, but he just looks stiff to me. He looks real robotic to me. He doesn't look completely comfortable. And maybe that was Kubiak's offense that maybe he just could not understand or did not feel comfortable in. Kevin O'Connell has spoken not highly of him, but respectful of him, unlike Mike Zimmer. What do you think, or where could a quarterback to the Vikings possibly fall? Because I know there's Carson Strong out of Nevada. His teammate, tight end Cole Turner out of Nevada, could possibly somebody. I know you picked him, possibly coming to the Vikings as another tight end. I cover both those guys on FS1, so I've seen them, and they are great. But what quarterback could possibly come to the Vikings?
I don't expect them to take one on day 1 or day 2, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
just because they have Kellen, they signed back Sean May, and then of
Yep.
course Kirk is going to be QB1 as long as he is here. So I don't expect them to take one early or day 1 or day 2. But one I did, I think he would be a pretty good fit for them is Jack Cohn from Notre
Okay.
Dame. He came over from Wisconsin, super smart, just a natural born leader, very calm, cool, and collected. I was able to see him out in Vegas at the East West Shrine game, and I thought he was one of the better options there, along with some other guys that they could have some interest in, like Brock Purdy from Iowa State, Skylar Thompson from Kansas State. But I thought the best of the bunch there was Jack Cohn.
Okay. And then last one, corner seems like the answer, but we're talking about succession plans. Harrison Smith, another guy getting older. What safety, if they do decide, is there a safety worth it at 12?
It's Kyle Hamilton, without question. I think if he's there at 12, I think you have to take him just because he's the number 4 overall player for me. And then a smart approach has always been to me, if I was a GM, is to take the best player available. You can't just sit there and draft for need just because that's when you just reach on some guys. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're sticking to your board, you stay BPA and you take the best player available that's there. If Kyle Hamilton is there for you at 12, I think you have to take him. And I like Cam Bynum. I like what he was able to show in Harrison Smith's absence, with Harry getting a little bit older too. But with Kyle Hamilton, there's so many different hats that he can wear on the defense. He can play strong safety, he can play free, he can play linebacker, you can blitz him up the middle or off of the edge. There's so many different things that you can do with him. It's not necessarily a situation of where the Vikings don't have any room at strong safety or free safety. I think they do, just because of just how versatile his skill set is as a whole.